In this video we're going to set up an automatically generated ATIS. So the first thing we need to do is check the winds and check that we have assigned the correct runways based on the direction of the winds. So we go to the meters list and we see that Vancouver winds are 220 at 9. So the 26s should be the active runways. We click on the runway icon on the top of the screen. You get the runways selection dialog box. Click on show active airports only to get rid of all the airports that are not of concern to your position. And then scroll down to look and find all the runways for Vancouver. Make sure that the correct runways are selected, and indeed we have runways 26 right excuse me, and runway 26 left selected. So that's checked. It's good. This is important because the automatic generation of ATIS will retrieve information from here. So if we have not selected the correct runways, the ATIS will be generated with the wrong runways. That's checked. That is done. Now we can click on the icon for the ATIS, which is this is the letter of the last ATIS I had published. If you click on that, the ATIS dialog box opens up, and for an automatic generation of ATIS is relatively simple, to the point that you don't need to worry about the 2/3 of what you are seeing on this dialog box. One thing that just make sure that you have selected properly is this text file ATIS_Canada, which is included in one of the subfolders that came with the files package that you downloaded when you downloaded the latest version of the sector file for Vancouver FIR. Make sure you're telling Euroscope where to get that information from, and if it is done properly, you will see the next section is properly populated with all the references and the sound files that are going to be used by Euroscope to generate the ATIS automatically. After that, as I mentioned, the following sections are sections that you don't need to worry about, including the section where the text of the ATIS would be included. That will be automatically done for you. One thing you need to make sure is that you have the correct airport ICAO code on this field. Here, as a matter of just showing you how this works, if I wanted to get the meter or generate an ATIS for Victoria, so I would type the Victoria Airport's ICAO code and then click on get meter, and you will see how almost immediately Euroscope retrieved the meter for that airport. Since we are going to work on the Vancouver ATIS, I will retrieve the Vancouver ATIS. Next thing is for you to select the letter of the ATIS. I will go for Juliet. Next, if this is the first time you are doing or working on an ATIS on Euroscope, most likely this field will be blank, and therefore you need to copy and paste the URL that I have included at the bottom of the screen. If you scroll down on the screen on YouTube, I included it as a comment. Just copy the entire string and pasted it here. You only need to do that once, because even after you log off and close Euroscope, next time you log in, you will see that the system will keep this information there. It will save it. But if this is the very first time, just make sure you copy it from YouTube and paste it here. Next thing we do is that we're going to test the URL. So you need to click on that, and when you click on that, Euroscope will connect with ATIS and will retrieve information from the active runways that we went through previously, and will automatically populate the ATIS for Vancouver. Takes a couple of seconds while it retrieves all that information, and then it has been properly populated. Now it's important for you to be familiar with the contents and the parts of a meter, so you can double check that the information that was downloaded and retrieved is the correct information. The system is helping us, but we need to have the ability to pick on errors if that's the case. So in this case, we see that is Vancouver information, Juliet, weather at 0600 Zulu, wind 220 at 9, variable between 180 and 240, visibility 15, sky conditions, few clouds 16,000, ceiling broken 19,000, temperature 21, dew point 17, altimeter 29882, approach ILS or visual runway 26 right and 26 left, departure runway 26 right and 26 left, advise ATC you have Juliet. So the text looks okay. Just take a quick look to the meter itself to make sure that everything matches. So we have at 0600 we have the wind, and here you can see that one of the things that is doing automatically is that it's applying the magnetic correction. Here we had it as 240. It has been already corrected to 220, and this is thanks to David's intervention. David established contact with ATIS and actually was able to get Vancouver and Victoria, if I'm not mistaken, as two of the airports that can be used or can be submitted and for the site to retrieve the ATIS with the magnetic correction. So that's already done. So just continue to check that everything is there, ceiling temperature and the ceiling based on the remarks as well. And indeed, we see that based on the remarks, the ceiling should be on the second cloud layer, and that's what we're getting here. We have few clouds at 16,000 and the ceiling broken at 19,000. So the text is okay. We don't see any errors. So the text part is good. Now we need to make sure that the sound part is good as well. The information you're seeing here between brackets is just a part of the coding of Euroscope, is letting Euroscope know which sound files to retrieve from this upper section here. When a pilot signs into or tunes into the ATIS frequency, they won't see the brackets, they will see the text, so don't be concerned about that. So now we need to test and make sure that the sound file is generated properly. In order to do that, the first thing you do is that you click on Listen Playback, and now you click on Start Multiple Record Playback. Once we've listened to the entire ATIS, I will uncheck Listen Playback and we'll connect it to VATSIM.
This is Vancouver International Airport information. Juliet. Weather taken at 0600 Zulu. Wind 220 at 9er. Variable between 180 and 240. Visibility 15. Sky condition few 16,000. Ceiling broken 19,000. Temperature 21 dew point 17. Altimeter 29882. IFR approaches the ILS or visual runway 26 right and 26 left. Departures runway 26 right and 26 left. Advise ATC on initial contact that you have information. Juliet. This is Vancouver International Airport.
Okay, sounds good. So I just uncheck Listen Playback. It will continue to cycle. The sound file will continue to cycle. That's what we need, and that's the way it should be. So now the only thing that we have pending is click on connect ATIS, and you will see that when we do that, the ATIS frequency will be included here, and also if you take a look at the top right of the screen, the ATIS channel, voice channel or frequency will be also included as part of the frequencies that are active. So let's click on connect, and you see how now it's showing 124.6. It is Juliet, and also CYVR ATIS is up. Last thing you need to do is click here, automatically generate ATIS. So every time a new meter comes in, Euroscope will automatically update the fields corresponding to the time, the wind, visibility, clouds, temperature, dew point, altimeter. The only thing Euroscope won't change on its own is the runways. So I will make an example of that, and I will refer to that in a couple of seconds. So that's pretty much it. Make sure that you have the correct file, text file reference for the correct sound files to be populated here. Make sure that you have the correct airport selected. Select the letter. If this is the first time you're using or generating an ATIS, make sure that you copy and paste the URL that I'm including on YouTube, and then click on test URL. Check the ATIS that was generated for you to correct mistakes if you find them or errors, and then listen playback, check on that, start multiple record playback, listen to it. If everything's okay, uncheck listen playback and connect. That's how you connect an ATIS, and that's how you set up an automatically generated ATIS using Euroscope. And now you can close it, and ATIS is up. Now what will happen, as I mentioned previously, is that every time a new meter comes in, it will, number one, it will change in color on the meters list. That a specific meter will become yellow, kind of highlighting it, and for you to visually see that a new meter came in. So one of your duties is to make sure that the winds are still okay to the runways you have selected, or let me put it the other way, make sure that the runways you have selected as active runways on the runways dialog box is correctly assigned based on the direction of the winds. If the winds change, all that information will be updated, but if there gets to be a change in the wind's direction where a change in the runways is required, Euroscope won't do it automatically. You as controller need to pick on that, and you need to go and reassign the active runways and regenerate the ATIS for it to include the new runways. So just as an example, I'll do that. Let's say that we just got a meter where the winds are now showing 120 at 9. With the magnetic correction, those winds would be 100 at 9. So that means that runway 26s are should no longer be the actives. We need to change our active runways to the 08s. So the first thing we do, as we did when we initially started working on an ATIS, is that now we need to go to the runway icon, scroll down to Vancouver, and now we need to make the 08s active. So that's the first thing you do if the winds change, requiring a change in the active runways. So once that is taken care of, now you can go back and click on the letter to open up the ATIS dialog box. And what you need to do is we need to repopulate this with that change. As you can see, it it continues to make reference to runway 26. How to update that based on the new selection of active runways we just did is that you come here and then you click on test URL again, and it will communicate with Euroscope. It will send that information to ATIS and will regenerate the ATIS. And as you can see, it have already updated it to indicate that now the actives are the 08s. And as we did initially, that took care of the text part of the ATIS. Now we need to take care of the sound part of the ATIS. How to take care of that? Click stop ATIS playback. Just wait 1 second and click start multiple record playback again, and that takes care of the sound. If you want to double check it, you just remember that what it is doing is it is cycling. The sound file is cycling. It's just that we're not listening to it. If we want to listen to it, we check this box.
Visibility 1-5. Sky condition. View 1-6,000. Ceiling broken 1-9,000. Temperature 2-1. Dew point 1-7. Altimeter 2-9-8-2. IFR approaches the ILS or visual runway 08 left and 08 right. Departures runway 08 left and 08 right. Advise ATC on.
Okay, we checked the sound file. Now it's good. As you can see, we did not have to disconnect the ATIS. The only thing was just momentarily stop the playback and then start it again for it to regenerate the sound file based on the new text that was generated after the change. And that would be it. You would close it and ATIS will continue to update itself. And just to finish this video and this example, I will take it back to the correct ATIS that should be in place right now based on the direction of the winds. Vancouver winds are 220 at 9, so active runways should be the 26s. So I go to the airport list, I activate the 26s, I go back to the ATIS dialog box, I click on test URL, it will update the runways, done. And now I need to regenerate the sound file by clicking stop, wait 1 second and start, and that takes care of that. Now every time a meter comes in, it will generate it automatically. It will change the letter automatically. The ATIS will be updated and the ATIS letter will be updated automatically. For other Euroscope users connected at the same time and connected in your area, every time the ATIS is updated, they will get a message automatically. You don't need to do any of that, and that message will let them know that there's a new ATIS for a given airport. Finally, just one quick comment regarding the frequencies is that, or the ATIS itself, is that you can get to the ATIS dialog box from in two different ways, clicking on the letter as we just did. But I also wanted to show you that if you click on the headset, which will open the comms box, you will see that when you connect an ATIS, Euroscope automatically checks the corresponding boxes on the comms dialog box, so you don't have to worry about that. But at the same time, what I wanted to show you is that from the comms dialog box, if you click on the voice ATIS setup, you can also get to the ATIS dialog box. So two ways to get to the same place. Close and close. If another controller comes online and they will take care of ATIS, for example, right now I'm logged in as approach for Vancouver. If Tower in Vancouver comes online and Tower will take over ATIS, what I need to do is go to the ATIS dialog box and disconnect ATIS. Close the dialog box. ATIS disappeared. I don't have it anymore. The new controller tower, in this case, will take care of the ATIS and will publish it. And if you are approached, that means that you can actually publish an ATIS for Victoria. So you can have, for the same FIR, if multiple controllers are online, we can have a lot of ATIS being generated automatically, providing a very nice variety and a whole bunch of different ATIS for the airports in our FIR, for pilots flying in our FIR. Credits are due to David Patton, because it was thanks to David's intervention and communication with UniATIS that we were able to get Vancouver and Victoria as two of the airports that they provide that service for, and also changing those sound files to have a female voice. That was also thanks to David's work. On another video we will go through how to set up what I call a manual ATIS, which is the ATIS that most likely most of you are familiar with, which is where you need to type the text yourself and you need to record the sound file yourself. So Euroscope offers you the two options with the corresponding pros and cons for each one of them. Thanks for watching.